Discover the 7 hidden truths of early America that will transform your understanding of survival. Claire's heart raced as she read the tagline for her grandfather's journal. The familiar, weathered pages felt like a weight in her hands. Here, a man who once strung together the pulse of their small town had written lessons she desperately craved but felt unworthy to inherit. A community college professor, she was barely keeping afloat, her paycheck stretched thin, barely filling the gaps where dreams ought to thrive. What right did she have to think she could grasp at the legacy of resilience he left behind? As the late afternoon sunlight flickered through her modest living room, Claire wrestled with the responsibility of her role as both a mother and a teacher. Would her son understand why she couldn't always provide? Or why the stories of strength etched in this journal eluded her grasp? She flipped through the pages, her mind swirling with inadequacy. Each truth brought forth memories of her grandfather's stoic face, how he led with determination, while she felt wilting under the pressure of expectations. Her thoughts drifted to Jake, her estranged brother, who had wandered far from their sleepy town to carve a life as a successful entrepreneur. The mere idea of his return ignited sparks of envy and resentment. How had he thrived when she felt tethered? The arrival of his polished success was a stark contrast to her fraying edges. Inside, she was a battlefield of conflicting emotions. Guilt over her envy, yearning for family unity, and the nagging feeling she was somehow lesser while his contributions were recognized. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With a desperate move, she skimmed through her grandfather's journal, longing to embed his words of wisdom into her own life. The first truth about the dignity in honest work ignited something in her. What if she could transform her teaching, not just for herself but for the community weathered like her? The thought sparked hope, but it only swirled into tighter knots of fear. Could she stand against the tides of judgment from her former classmates who surged ahead, with bright futures outlining their success? The stakes felt unbearably high as she sat with pen poised, ready to draft her own interpretations of the truths, poised between honor and ambition. But Jake's silhouette loomed large in her mind. The weight of their family's reputation was heavy on her shoulders. Her desire to claim her voice felt like an act of rebellion. Only days later, Claire found herself amidst the excitement of planning a community gathering to unveil her discoveries. Could this bring the very connection her brother accused her of jeopardizing? The thought sent chills down her spine, as if she were tearing the fabric of family loyalty apart. And in that moment, as she prepared for the confrontation she knew would come, her heart thrummed with uncertainty. Did she dare step into her light, or would her ambition, fueled by whispers of her grandfather's truths, scatter the remnants of their family? As Claire clutched the journal tightly, the weight of her family's history and her desire for recognition crashed against each other, leaving her to grapple with a truth she wasn't ready to accept. The air around her thickened with tension, echoing the turmoil within. What would happen when the past collided with the emboldened future she sought? Claire stared at the blank page before her, the ink of her pen hovering like a hesitant bird. Her mind raced with the implications of her upcoming gathering, each thud of her heart accompanied by doubts. What if her interpretations misrepresented her grandfather's truths? What if the very act of sharing invited ridicule rather than acceptance? The thrill of hope felt buried beneath layers of inadequacy. She inhaled deeply, the familiar scent of her grandfather's journal grounding her. The words inside were more than mere ink. They pulsated with strength and clarity, reflections of a life lived unapologetically. He had faced trials that echoed the very struggles she now confronted. Why could she not draw from that well of wisdom? Her gaze shifted to a framed photo of her grandfather, a steadfast figure, eyes twinkling with wisdom. In that moment, She recognized the conflict she had with his legacy was rooted in her own doubts about her place in the world, both as a teacher and a sister. The clouds of uncertainty started to clear, replaced by a glimmer of determination. If she dared to embrace her grandfather's lessons not just for herself but for the kids she taught, perhaps it would ripple outward beyond what she initially envisioned. The community she often discounted had its roots in the stories of resilience she had long revered. Could she forge a connection, not just with her students, but with her brother and her past? Yet the idea of reaching out was shrouded in fear. What if Jake returned? His success a glaring reminder of her perceived failures. She instinctively reached for her phone, fingers hovering over his number before retreating back. Instead, she decided to text him a neutral message, more to test the waters than anything else. The minutes dragged as she awaited a reply, her thoughts a non-stop carousel. Did she even have the right to reach out, to interrupt the life he had built away from their small town? The ping of her phone startled her. It was Jake. "Hey Claire. Long time. Everything okay?" His lack of familiarity stung, but the crack in the distance between them also flickered with a need for understanding. She typed, deleted, and retyped her answer, each attempt feeling heavier than the last. In a moment of clarity, she answered with, "I'm working on something important. Can we talk?" Words felt insufficient now, but the prospect of reconnecting required courage. She could feel the premonition of confrontation looming, the tension building within her a mixture of fear and anticipation. The risks reared their heads. Would he dismiss her ideas if they highlighted her struggle? Would he see her longing for validation as desperation? As anxious energy coursed through her, Claire turned back to the journal, her resolve hardening. If she was going to share her interpretations, she needed to ground them with authenticity. She would write about her fears, her aspirations, and her interactions, however flawed. Each truth she unfolded would showcase her path, jagged though it might be. Hours later, Claire leaned over the journal, her thoughts intertwining with the ink as she wrote feverishly. She tapped into her hidden fears and unchained aspirations, confronting what lay beneath the surface. Each word became a step toward reclaiming her narrative, building her voice from the ashes of doubt. As she set down the pen, time seemed to pause. The weight of the past clashed with the promises of the future. What awaited on the other side of her gathering? The emotional abyss of being judged by her brother was unbearable. But as she prepared to embrace her story and seek redemption, Claire's phone buzzed again this time, asking if he could come home to talk. The surge of uncertainty resonated once more. This would be their chance to either build a bridge or unravel further. With her heart pounding, Claire started drafting her opening remarks for the gathering. Would she be able to channel the historical lessons into her own narrative, or was she poised to unravel under scrutiny? The moment of truth approached, ready to reveal what she truly set in motion by embracing her grandfather's legacy. Claire's heart raced as she stood in the warmth of her living room, the looming presence of her brother's visit igniting both excitement and fear. The journal lay open on the table, its pages whispering reminders of her grandfather's strength, urging her to find courage within her own insecurities. She glanced at the clock, each tick amplifying her sense of urgency. Would Jake see her as a complete stranger, or worse, a failure? Her mind wrestled with self-doubt, questioning if the work she had poured her soul into was worthy of anyone's attention, let alone his. Yet, beneath that worry, a relentless voice urged her to confront the truth. Her journey was intrinsically intertwined with his. Choosing to focus on the task at hand, she drafted her opening speech for the gathering. The words flowed slowly at first but began to gain momentum as she allowed her fears to coalesce with the lessons she'd gleaned from her grandfather's journal. Each sentence became a testament not just to her family's past, but also to the personal insights she longed to share with her students. She envisioned their faces, eager and responsive, and let that image guide her. In her reflections, she recalled stories from her grandfather's life, tales of adversity, resilience, and fortitude. How he faced dire situations not because he was without fear, but because he chose to act despite it. This realization gave her strength, If he could confront his challenges, perhaps she could learn to face her own. Just then, a loud knock resounded through the hall. Claire froze, the sound reverberating in her chest as her brother's presence loomed large. She inhaled deeply, taking a moment to steady herself before crossing the room to answer. Each step felt monumental, a quiet testament to her desire for genuine connection. Jake stood at the door, looking every bit the successful figure he had become in their years apart. His tailored suit contrasted sharply with the unassuming surroundings of their childhood home. As their eyes met, Claire felt an unspoken tension settle between them, heavy but not insurmountable. "Hey, Claire," he said, his voice warmer than she anticipated. "Thanks for inviting me." "Of course," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "Comment?" The small talk hovered around them for a few moments, each probing question a step further down the path to vulnerability. Claire sought to gauge Jake's reaction. Could he sense her agitation? Did he know how much was riding on this? She clung to the hope that the very act of sharing herself openly could thaw the chill that had grown between them. I've been working on something important too," Jake said, his casual tone betraying a hint of nervousness. "Thought you might like to hear about it." His admission ignited a spark of intrigue within her, quickly turning her mind toward their shared experiences. What if they could bridge the gap through an exchange of their respective journeys? As he spoke, recounting tales of his own corporate challenges, Claire began to draw parallels between their stories, both exploring strides made in unfamiliar territories, both grappling with insecurities. As he finished, she hesitated, fighting the urge to downplay her aspirations. She envisioned the gathering, the energy only she could ignite by unveiling her grandfather's insights. In a calculated breath, she steered the conversation toward her own project, recapitulating the stories and lessons that could illuminate paths her students could take. For every acknowledgement of her research, she could see a tangible change in Jake's demeanor, interest mixed with curiosity. Could this shared interaction create a new channel between them? Dare she entertain the possibility that vulnerability might intertwine their lives once more? However, a gnawing realization punctuated her growing excitement. The courage to invite him deeper into her world would require more than just sharing knowledge. It would call for her to confront the fears she deburied for too long. The way forward was uncertain, and the potential for judgment still lay in the shadows. Just as she gathered her courage to speak, Jake's phone buzzed on the coffee table. He glanced down, a frown furrowing his brow before he turned back to her, expression steeled for a moment that could alter their trajectory. "I received a call from the firm. Claire, it might change everything." Time suspended as she anticipated the weight of his words, wondering if their chance for connection would break open or shatter completely. The foundations of their past rested on this moment, balancing between fear and hope as the threshold of a new understanding beckoned her forward. Would she step through and reclaim her narrative, or would she falter, allowing the past to hold her hostage? The air thickened with tension as Jake's words lingered in the atmosphere. Claire's breath hitched in her throat, the scope of his statement dawning upon her like a harsh light illuminating a darkened room. "Change everything." The phrase reverberated in her mind, a pulse of dread and curiosity that gnawed at her resolve. What exactly did that mean for them? "Change what?" she asked, forcing herself to sound nonchalant, though a storm of questions churned within her. She wrestled with the instinct to retreat into the comfort of her own insecurities. Peering into the depths of her brother's expression, she sought evidence of the sibling connection they had long neglected. "The firm is restructuring," Jake responded with a glance away, his gaze sliding toward the window as if the answer lay in the mundane details of the street beyond. "They're eliminating a few positions, including my department." His admission struck Claire with the force of unexpected betrayal. How could this be happening? How was she just now discovering this monumental twist in his life? Her thoughts ricocheted wildly. In the past, she'd have offered him comfort while suppressing her own emotions. But now, she felt a surge of something else, an instinct, a need to confront these tangled dynamics head-on. "Are you worried?" The slight hesitation before he nodded told her more than words could convey. Behind his calm facade lay the same simmering uncertainty she carried in her own heart. For all the barriers erected by time, they were still tethered by shared vulnerabilities. Maybe this was her moment to break down those walls, or at least to begin the process. "Of course I'm worried," he confessed, crossing his arms defensively. "Every decision I've made, every single one, could become ineffective. My life, my trajectory, it all feels so precarious right now." For a moment, Claire felt the weight of his admission shift the power dynamic in the room. No longer were they merely debating the world outside. They were both standing at the precipice of their respective uncertainties. Her heart beat a furious tattoo against her ribcage, urging her to leverage this opportunity for deeper connection. In that instant, she saw the necessity of sharing her own ambivalence. "I get it. I really do. I've spent months feeling like a failure myself. This project, that's why I hoped we could talk. To find some semblance of direction for both of us." Jake met her gaze, surprise flickering across his features, as if he had never considered her struggles to be as valid as his own. This realization blossomed a path forward, yet simultaneously tugged her backwards into the familiar cloak of self-doubt. Would he squelch her ambitions before she could even lay them bare? "Your project, the stories from Granddad's life," Jake said thoughtfully, "they matter. You've found your voice in that way. Despite everything, maybe we both need to start from wherever we are right now." A twinge of fear racked her insides. What if she opened herself up, and there was nothing but silence in return? But with that fear also came buoyancy, an intoxication for the uncertainty, as she bravely continued. "Maybe I can help you find a new path. We could teach each other. I'm learning as I go, and maybe there's something valuable in that." Jake nodded slowly, a moment of understanding reflecting in his eyes. "Teaching? You mean like collaborating? Why not? You have insights I wish to absorb, and I may have something to offer you as well." She held her breath, the proposition tinged with both excitement and apprehension. This was beyond mere sibling bonding. This was the beginning of a partnership, the potential for professional evolution intertwined with their personal discovery. He contemplated her proposal, weighing its implications, and Claire's heart raced. Could he see the merits of the journey they could embark on together? As they faced the world outside, she sensed the unveiling of new pathways, both for him and for herself. Then he muttered half to himself, "If we're going to unravel all of this, we're going to need to dig deep, aren't we?" And in that dig, Claire understood that their journey, fraught with contrasts yet brimming with possibility, was far from conventional. It would require exposing insecurities that they had each long hidden. But was she prepared for the depths of discovery this could require? As Jake lifted his gaze back to her, a challenge kindled in his eyes. "Are you ready for that?" Just as the full weight of her answer began to form in her thoughts, another buzz interrupted, or was it a warning? Jake's phone chimed again, and the glint of urgency in his eyes mirrored her own. What lay ahead was now intertwined. For every challenge, they must also face the truths lurking beneath the surface. Would their mutual vulnerabilities mold them together, or would they fracture under pressure? Claire's mind buzzed as she tried to process the enormity of what they had just initiated. The weight of their newfound partnership pressed against her chest, a blend of exhilaration and trepidation. She had dreamed of this, of reaching out, of connecting on a deeper level with her brother. Yet, as the prospect solidified, so did her fear of what might come of it. The chance to collaborate could easily morph into revisiting old wounds. "So where do we start?" she asked, attempting to steady her voice. Her question hung in the air, weighted with anticipation. Jake ran his hand through his hair, a gesture that indicated both thoughtfulness and frustration. "I suppose we need to identify our strengths first. We both have goals now, and if we can align them, it might give us direction." He seemed resolute, but Claire could sense the underlying anxiety. She needed clarity, a roadmap to traverse this intertwining of paths. "Okay," she said, nodding slowly as she mentally outlined her thoughts. "Let us break it down. For me, storytelling is powerful. My passion lies with weaving narratives together. I want to uncover the layers of our granddad's life, the decisions he made, how they shaped his identity. Your ability to draw out the subtlety is a strength, Jake interjected. When you tell those stories, it's like you breathe life into them. His compliment felt comforting, but there was still a lingering self-doubt that haunted her. Did she truly possess the capability to tackle this project on top of helping him with his crisis? And what about you? She pressed on, feeling the need to shift focus. What are your strengths that we can capitalize on? He leaned forward, expression shifting. I've had to analyze complex situations at work constantly. I know how to strategize, how to frame problems, break them apart and come up with solutions. It wasn't just about managing people. It was about guiding them through their own uncertainties. Her thoughts entwined with memories of weekends spent discussing his work, the passion that colored his words even when the stress weighed heavily. That's it, Jake. You could help me identify the core themes in the stories. What do you think Granddad might have wanted people to remember? The flicker in his gaze suggested something dormant ignited within him. Maybe he had something to share that transcends just his personal struggles. Something universal. Claire's heart raced at the possibility, a converging of their perspectives. A synthesis of ambition and history. They were keenly aware of their individual vulnerabilities. Yet in this hour of brainstorming, she sensed that a flicker of courage existed in both. Let us start by creating a timeline of his life, Jake suggested with renewed enthusiasm. We can map out significant events and decisions. We can also chronicle how they intersected with the social and economic climates of the time. May have been monumental for him, but we'll find a way to relate it to people today. Claire held her breath, a wave of excitement crashing over her. And we can include interviews of people from his generation, see how their perspectives match or differ. It'll give depth to our project. Her thoughts cascaded, her mind racing with possibilities as they brainstormed. Each step she took with Jake felt progressively less fraught with her earlier insecurities. Was this dynamic partnership helping her gain clarity about her own professional growth? Yet, just as she allowed herself to bask in the glow of chance, another thought dared to intrude. What if this journey unraveled everything she thought she knew? What if working closely with Jake nudged open doors to painful revelations, not just about their family, but about themselves? Before she could voice her concerns, Jake's phone chimed again, a notification that broke their concentration. A stark reminder of the external pressures both were contending with. Sorry, it's work, he muttered and glanced at his screen, frustration flitting across his features. I don't think I can ignore this. As he turned his attention to the message, Claire felt the heaviness of unspoken words linger between them. This wasn't just a matter of balancing their growing project with their family history. It was stepping into uncharted territory fraught with potential and risk. In that fleeting moment, Claire realized clarity often leads to more questions than answers. Perhaps Jake's struggles were just beginning, and so were her own. The challenge hung in the air, the fear of unearthing darker truths mixed with the thrill of discovery. Would they both emerge stronger, or would the digging expose fractures they had buried long ago? Jake, she said, her voice steadier now, after this is over, we'll need to confront what we find. One Tiwi? His gaze met hers, a spark of determination igniting anew. Yeah, we will. But that can't dissuade us, right? And with that acknowledgement echoed between them, she knew they were on the precipice of something pivotal, but would they ultimately choose to leap into the uncertainty together? Claire's thoughts swirled like autumn leaves caught in a brisk wind. The weight of Jake's work demands loomed over them like a shadow, sharpening her sense of urgency. She couldn't allow their project to stall, nor could she dismiss the path of inquiry they were about to walk. Her determination took root, mirroring the energy they had shared moments ago. The laptop screen glowed back at her, a blank canvas starving for words. She had always embraced the power of storytelling, but this project felt different. It was layered with personal stakes. Every narrative she crafted about their grandfather's struggles demanded introspection. Each word could chip away at the facade they had both been maintaining, revealing truths they may not be ready to confront. Let us not lose momentum, she said, her voice firm. We should start listing out key milestones from his life. What were the pivotal moments that shaped him? She felt a flicker of excitement breathing life into her determination, and soon both siblings delved into shared memories that would help them outline their grandfather's timeline. His move to the city for work was big, Jake offered, his frustration retreating as he engaged with the task. He left everything behind, probably seeking opportunities everyone talked about in the war's aftermath. She scribbled down his words, carefully piecing the puzzle as he spoke. And when he met Grandma, it transformed him, didn't it? They were partners in everything, even through the hardest times. As they revisited these defining chapters, Claire's sense of purpose crystallized. She was contesting fears she had long held about not being worthy of this family history. Each snippet pulled from faded recollections was grounding her in something meaningful. The process had begun to reveal hidden strengths in both her and Jake, a collaboration that might transcend just their shared lineage. "Did you ever think about what he'd want us to learn from him?" Claire asked suddenly. The question had been brewing in the back of her mind, but she hadn't yet given it voice. "Maybe, no, definitely he'd want us to know it's okay to fail," Jake replied thoughtfully. "He faced so many challenges but kept trying. He taught me that life doesn't flow smoothly for anyone." This admission struck Claire, not just for the recognition within her brother's voice, but for the realization that what they were embarking on could reflect more than just their family's past. It could be a guide for their futures. The fear of failure that had dogged her in the years since college began to lift, just like fog dissipating with morning sunlight. "Let us frame our research around that idea," she suggested, a sense of direction illuminating her mind. Failures and lessons learned, what they meant in his time compared to ours. It might resonate more widely. As they fleshed out the timeline's structure, her previous worry morphed into excitement. The intertwining paths of their histories began weaving a rich narrative fabric that wouldn't merely recount events, but would challenge readers on a personal level. "Tell me more about what you think we should do with all of this," Jake encouraged, leaning into her enthusiasm. "I want to incorporate interviews, reach out to people who knew him and share those perspectives," she proposed eagerly. "They can provide us with insights and personal reflections, illustrating how his actions still resonate today." Jake's eyes sparkled with newfound interest. "That adds so much depth. If we can marry the timelines with modern relevance, we might create something powerful," he asserted, an infectious fervor emerging from within him. Yet, even amid their growing excitement, Claire felt a tremor of apprehension. What if some of these interviews revealed truths that were too painful, too close to home? Each inquiry could peel back layers she was not ready to expose, laying bare familial complexities she might prefer to leave unexamined. "Together we'll navigate it," Jake said, breaking into her thoughts. "Just like Granddad faced the uncertainties of his time, we can, too." As they continued to structure their approach, Claire's heart raced. Each moment spent engaging with their grandfather's history felt layered with the potential for both revelation and confrontation. "All right, let us set our first interviews," she decided, a firm resolve settling within her. "We'll initiate this next step with purposeful intent." Jake nodded, his determination mirroring her own. But amid their enthusiasm, Claire realized the iceberg of uncharted emotions lay just below the surface. What lay ahead might not only reveal their grandfather but truths about themselves they had long avoided. With every intention now in place, the time had come to confront not only the past but the shadows within themselves. Was the deeper connection they craved going to cost them more than they anticipated? "Claire," Jake's voice pulled her from her spiraling thoughts. "Are we really ready for this?" The tremor in his voice mirrored her own uncertainty, affirming that they weren't just forging ahead toward a family history, but daring to redefine who they were and who they might become. And as Claire and Jake prepared to leap into this truth-seeking mission, the horizon ahead trembled with potential, a stark reminder that discovery often accompanies unexpected struggles. What buried truths might emerge from their quest, and would they be able to confront them together? Claire sat at her desk, fingers poised over the keyboard, the weight of their decision pressing down like an anvil. The room around her felt heavy with anticipation, the kind that came before a storm. She couldn't shake the feeling that the journey they had chosen would reach far beyond academic endeavor. It was a plunge into the deepest waters of their family dynamics. As she began typing their grandfather's key milestones, The act itself felt liberating yet daunting. Each detail brought forth echoes of emotions long buried. Claire's heart quickened when she recalled the whispered stories of their family's sacrifices. What if her probing into the past ignited old wounds? A flash of insecurity flared as she questioned her emotional preparedness. Could she withstand the pressure of unveiling layers she had long since tried to forget? Okay, interviews, she muttered to herself, forcing focus through the tension. She opened a new document, titling it First Interview Potential Contacts. Names started flowing onto the page: family, friends, neighbors from the old neighborhood, and colleagues of their grandfather. With each name, a swell of anxiety accompanied thoughts about expectations her own and those others might hold. What were they hoping to extract from the ashes of memories? Jake appeared in the doorway, hesitant. I've been thinking about our interview strategy. What if we framed our questions around key lessons learned? It's a way to guide the conversation without making it feel intrusive. His suggestion resonated. She hadn't considered that angle, right? Asking them what they learned from him would provide context and allow them to share meaningful insights without forcing emotions. Exactly, Jake replied, a spark brightening his expression. It keeps us focused on the narrative we're building, turning recollections into reflections. Their synergy danced across the room, rendering Claire's doubt momentarily mute. As they crafted questions together, her confidence gradually shadowed the apprehension. Yet, beneath that burgeoning confidence, a persistent whisper warned her. This was bound to become more than a project. It would challenge their understanding of family, loyalty, and even the identities they constructed over years of avoidance. In one of their brainstorming avenues, Jake brought up their parents, casting a shadow over the day's developments. What if some family views clash with what we uncover? You know how mom is about dad's past. A flicker of tension ignited in Claire's chest. Their parents' ghosts loomed large, particularly the secrets tangled in their family tree like the roots of an old oak. Honesty in reliving the past struck her as both an opportunity and a potential landmine. We need to be careful, but we can't allow their fears to deter us from understanding the full truth, she countered, her voice steadier than she felt. Jake nodded, albeit uneasily. True, but at what point do we decide if the revelation is worth the fallout? Claire paused, wrestling with the moral implications. This was her elder brother's skepticism surfacing, but it mirrored her own growing concerns. Was it worth risking their familial relationships for clarity and honesty? The stakes had never been this high. Maybe we find a balance? Ensure our parents are included in the process, helping them feel respected while we pursue these truths. Yeah, he agreed, though a shadow of doubt clouded his brow. But if they resist, what then? A knot formed in Claire's stomach. They had to be ready to confront their parents, to address their fears head-on. Each truth gleaned through their interviews would serve as a potential catalyst for deeper discussions unraveling their family dynamics in ways that could fracture or fortify. Let us give it time, she finally suggested, feeling a rush of energy building within her. After the first few interviews, we can reassess how to involve mom and dad. As she closed her laptop, fatigue washed over her. The excitement postulated in bursts of creativity was now tempered by the weight of breaths yet to be taken, difficult conversations yet to unfold. Claire leaned back in her chair and exhaled slowly, the reality of their endeavor enveloping her like a cloak. They were poised between the past and the future, risking everything to strengthen threads that could either bind or unravel altogether. Ready? Jake ventured, stepping closer to her. More than ever, she replied, though uncertainty lingered in her mind. They stood on the edge of a dive into depths unknown. Would they emerge with the insights they yearned for? Or would they find themselves lost in a sea of revelations too tumultuous to handle? As the evening settled around them, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that clarity might come at a price, and the hardest lesson yet was just beginning. The moment Claire set out to conduct her first interview, a shiver of apprehension skimmed down her spine. They had already spent long hours crafting questions and discussing the particulars, yet the challenge loomed larger than either of them had anticipated. As she made her way to the small cafe where Mrs. Thompson, a family friend, would meet them, Claire's mind swirled with concerns. What if the revelations were more painful than enlightening? Was she truly prepared to handle the fallout of whatever truths lay beneath the surface? Upon entering, Claire spotted Mrs. Thompson seated at a corner table, a warm smile lighting up her face. It felt familiar, yet Claire's stomach nodded. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that each interaction carried potential. They weren't merely seeking historical data. They were excavating family legacies, unearthing the good and bad alike. "Claire, dear, so lovely to see you," Mrs. Thompson beamed, a contrast to the turmoil stubbornly wedged in Claire's gut. She welcomed them with open arms, and for a moment, Claire basked in the nostalgia before the past encroached on her awareness again. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Claire managed, taking a seat while Jake scanned the cafe, his demeanor a mixture of caution and eagerness. They settled into small talk, but within moments, Claire shifted the conversation, testing the waters. "We're collecting stories about Grandpa milestones, lessons learned. Can you share what you remember most about him?" Mrs. Thompson's expression shifted instantly, a glint of nostalgia in her eyes. "Your grandfather was a remarkable man. He had such a way with people, always uplifting everyone's spirits." Claire listened intently, jotting down notes, but her focus sharpened as the discussion veered toward deeper territory. "Did he ever share any struggles with you?" Jake shot Claire a look, a silent reminder of their discussion around framing questions. Claire braced herself for Mrs. Thompson's response, aware of the potential pitfalls. "Oh, there were many struggles, dear," Mrs. Thompson continued, her voice turning somber. "He lost a lot in his youth. His family faced hardship during those depressions. Taught him resilience." The words clawed at Claire. These weren't merely facts. They were glimpses into a shared agony wrapped in familial lore. How did that shape him? She pressed, clarity dawning within the layers of their grandfather's life. "It made him more compassionate," she answered, a twinkle in her eye. "He always said the greatest lesson life taught him was to listen, to truly hear what others had to say. He believed in the power of connection through shared struggles." Claire felt the weight of those words. Compassion, what a bitter, beautiful lesson. It was an irony shimmering beneath the surface, particularly in light of her growing concerns about how her own family might react to the truths they were starting to unearth. Would they, too, grapple with compassion? With each subsequent question, the atmosphere thickened. Mrs. Thompson's reminiscences unearthed buried fears that Claire hadn't expected. Unspoken doubts about those connections, the tangled relationships growing up, and the ghosts of family conflicts began to surface. It no longer felt merely like a project. It transformed into a crucible, igniting conflicts within herself that she long sought to ignore. After nearly 2 hours, they wrapped up the conversation. But the insights lingered in Claire's mind like remnants of a storm. "I need a moment," she murmured to Jake as they stepped outside. "That was more than I planned for." Jake caught her eye, his expression reflecting the gravity of their endeavor. "Do you think we're ready for this?" "Ready or not, we have to keep going," Claire said, her heart pounding. "But I suspect our journey is destined to become far more complicated." With urgency surging within her, a flash of determination lit up Claire's thoughts. Clarity might have come, but it demanded a reckoning of deeper truths. They had started to traverse family legacies, and the weight of those lessons began pulling her in unexpected directions. As she stared into the uncertainty of the horizon, a revelation hit. It wasn't just about their grandfather anymore. It challenged their very identities and how they saw their entire lineage. The time had come to confront the uncomfortable. The hardest truths they would face were their own. "Next is Mom and Dad," she said, the resolve hardening in her voice. "We're not stopping now. We need to pull them into this as well." Jake nodded hesitantly, yet she could see his acceptance there. They had crossed a threshold into unknown territory, where family could bond deeper or possibly break apart. With the sun setting behind them, a sense of urgency washed over Claire. She knew one thing for certain. Uncovering these truths was only just the beginning, and the most critical conversations loomed ahead. The moment had arrived to face the past, all of it, and there was no turning back now. Would uncovering their family's hidden truths fortify their bond or catalyze a fracture? The stakes had never been higher. Claire stood at the precipice of an emotional storm. The conversations with Mrs. Thompson had unearthed not just memories but unsettling doubts about her own family dynamics. Would her parents embrace the vulnerability they had just begun to explore? Or would they close ranks, shielding themselves from truths too painful to confront? She shifted her weight from one foot to another, feeling the ground beneath her growing less stable. With Jake beside her, silently urging her to take the lead, Claire took a deep breath. They needed to approach her parents with not just questions but an invitation to navigate the murky waters of their history together. This could be their chance for clarity and bonding, but it could also unleash hidden resentments. She felt an urgency pulsing within, a need to illuminate the dark corners of her familial past. The drive home was thick with unspoken tension. As they approached the house, Claire's heart raced. Each moment spent in reflection heightened her determination. Her parents had built a life together, one filled with achievements but also punctuated by silences that hinted at underlying strife. In many ways, she realized, they had defined the narrative of her childhood, a narrative she now longed to rewrite with greater truthfulness. "Claire," Jake broke through her thoughts, "you're thinking about this too much. Remember, your parents love you. They might surprise you." His words hung in the air, a thin thread of hope. But Claire was familiar with the shadows that lingered just behind familial love, the fears and hidden judgments, the unwillingness to confront what had long been left unsaid. It was becoming increasingly clear that to facilitate a real dialogue, she would need to tread carefully. They would have to plant seeds of trust first before attempting to excavate deeper truths. After dinner, the three of them gathered in the living room, the familiar surroundings suddenly feeling alien. Claire's mother sat in her favorite armchair, her fingers nervously tracing the fabric, while her father, a mountain of stern resolve, dominated the sofa. They exchanged concerned glances, unaware of the depths to which Claire was prepared to plunge. Taking a deep breath, Claire ventured forward. "Mom, Dad, Jake and I have started delving into our family history. We've been talking to relatives about Grandpa's life, and we think it's important to include you in this exploration. There are stories, challenges you faced, and lessons," she hesitated, feeling vulnerability creep in, "that you can share with us." Her father's brow furrowed, and the air grew thick with apprehension. "Claire, sometimes the past is best left in the past," he cautioned, as if anticipating the emotional upheaval that could follow. "Or, sometimes it's important to make peace with it," Claire countered gently but firmly, her resolve hardening. "We want to understand our roots better, but we also want you to share your stories. No more silences." Claire's mother shifted uneasily, her gaze dropping to her lap. The moment felt electric, as though a weight pressed upon them all. Would her parents reveal their true selves? Or would this session dissolve into avoidance and half-hearted reassurances? The unresolved tension simmered, and Claire risked a glance at Jake. He offered a look of support but lingered on the edge of uncertainty. Her family's responses could either fortify the foundation of their collective identity or fracture it further. "Why don't we start with something simple?" Claire suggested, trying to diffuse the tension. "What do you remember most about Grandpa? What feelings does it stir?" Her voice wavered. Would the memories bring them closer or unearth festering wounds they weren't ready to heal? And just like that, as they began to talk, Claire felt the tension shift ever so slightly. The air remained thick with apprehension, yet the first responses sparked something within. A flicker of hope that perhaps they were on the brink of uncovering something monumental. However, deep down, Claire recognized that this was just the beginning. Would their family's courage to confront these shared stories outweigh the fear of what discovery might mean? As they shared laughter and tears, a piece of Claire's apprehension began to dissolve, but a new question arose. What other unacknowledged narratives rested beneath the surface, waiting to be unearthed, and would they have the strength to confront them together? The stakes felt higher than anticipated, and it was clear. The moment of truth was yet to unfold, and the path ahead remained uncertain but filled with potential. What would these revelations uncover about not just their past, but also who they were destined to become? The weeks that followed the family dialogue were a whirlwind of emotion and reflection. Claire sat surrounded by notes and recordings of their conversations, her heart heavy yet hopeful. She watched as her family began to embrace the project, a transformation igniting within them as they uncovered their shared stories. The process was revealing, challenging, and even healing, each conversation chipping away at the barriers built from years of misunderstanding and avoidance. One evening, Claire found herself sifting through her grandfather's journal, its pages now stained with the ink of her aspirations and fears. As she read, she recognized that her perceptions of inadequacy were dissolving into a sense of purpose. She was no longer merely a community college professor struggling against the current. She was a storyteller reclaiming her voice. With each word she wrote about her family's history, she felt the weight of self-doubt lift. It wasn't merely about legacy. This was about forging her own identity amid layers of familial ties. Meanwhile, Jake reciprocated in kind. His endeavors at work began to mirror the transformative work they undertook together. A newfound creativity bloomed within him, rekindled by the insights gained from their family interviews. He was no longer the estranged brother in a polished suit. He was a collaborator, grounded in familial roots, reimagining his own narrative. As the project progressed, Claire's resolve solidified. She orchestrated the upcoming community gathering, one intended to unveil not just their grandfather's life lessons, but also to celebrate the stories that shaped their family. This was it, the moment she envisioned as both culmination and continuation of their journey. Would her community embrace her vulnerability, or would they scorn her attempt at connection? On the evening of the gathering, the room was infused with anticipation. Rows of chairs filled quickly, buzzing with conversations. As Claire stood behind the podium, her heart pounding with a mix of exhilaration and trepidation, she caught sight of Jake among the crowd, his presence lending her strength. As she approached the microphone, Claire felt the weight of generations pressing against her, but simultaneously felt buoyed by her grandfather's spirit guiding her. She recounted the tales they had unearthed, the laughter, the struggles, and the resilience that defined their lineage. With each revelation, she invited her audience to reflect on their own narratives and the lessons that had shaped them. "I once believed I had no right to tell these stories," Claire began, her voice steady. "But I have learned that we all carry our histories, filled with both challenges and triumphs. We are not lesser, but rather enriched by our complexities. Tonight, I invite you to embrace your own stories, to seek out what binds us." The response was overwhelming. Attendees shared their own reflections, the healing moments, the struggles of survival, and their journeys of growth. The dialogue became a collective symphony of resilience that began to dissolve the walls of separation, not only within her family, but within their community. By the time the gathering concluded, Claire felt different, changed in a way she had not anticipated. The fears that had once paralyzed her were now replaced by a solid confidence. With each story shared, she claimed her space within that narrative, a pillar in her community. Her brother's eyes sparkled with recognition. He, too, had forged a new direction for himself, uniting the business knowledge accrued over years with the compassion they unearthed together. In the aftermath, reflection washed over Claire like a wave of clarity. Her self-worth was not bound to external validation. She accomplished not just a professional task, but a deeply personal journey of transformation. Each moment of vulnerability revealed the strength that resided within her, a competence previously overshadowed by self-doubt. In the days that followed, Claire felt a new sense of purpose envelop her teaching. She strived to instill in her students the very essence of their shared resilience, the lessons passed down from her grandfather tangled now with her own reflections. With renewed vigor, she engaged her students, demonstrating how they, too, could weave their narratives into powerful stories of growth. As Jake ventured forward in his career with an eye for creative solutions influenced by their collaborative journey, he acknowledged the new depth to their sibling bond as a foundation for both personal and professional endeavors. Life was no longer an endless cycle of comparison and envy. It had transformed into a tapestry, rich with stories, emotions, and connection. Claire walked forward, firmly grounded in her solid place not just as a teacher or a daughter or a sister, but as a woman who had conquered her struggles, proven her worth, and achieved the clarity to guide others. In this profound moment of accomplishment, Claire turned to her grandfather's journal one last time and whispered a silent thank you. She was ready to embrace the future without fear. Now is the moment to connect. You need to subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will undoubtedly inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for incredible narratives like this one. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Also, comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Let us keep the conversation alive.